But this is not just another Zoom meeting, because it's a chance to learn and to reflect and to just look deeper into ourselves, which is something that perhaps you've done during the holidays. And now with the beginning of the new year, I don't know about you, but the cliche, you must have some New Year's resolutions. So good luck. You need determination, you need resiliency, and you need this topic tonight. You need courage to make the resolutions a reality, to make those changes. Now, Courage is Calling is a book by Ryan Holiday, and this came out in our business community's recommended book program. I like the books of Ryan Holiday. We'll look at it in a bit. But self-help, this is a self-help book that is filled with so many stories of people who are overcomers. They're people that inspire us, and they're people that just conquer their fears. These people showed resilience, courage, and commitment during challenging times, such as wars, battles against discrimination, and struggle for equality among men and women. So the book is filled with lots of stories of people, some very known people, heroes in history, and others not so well known, but nevertheless heroes and very courageous people nonetheless. So I would just like to talk to you about the Ryan Holiday. Okay. You have heard of this author. He has written many books. He's American. He's an American stoic, podcaster, and public relations strategies. His books include Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, Discipline is Destiny, Stillness is the Key, or perhaps there are other books too, or other books coming soon. So let's talk about a very important thing. Fear. Let's just stop a minute at this time, January 6, 2023, and just try to understand, try to realize, and try to look at what your fear is. These are self-limiting beliefs. These are the problems we have when we think of public judgment. That uncertainty of stepping out on your own into your uncomfortable zone. We are mostly afraid of attracting attention and being judged by others, saying negative things against us, plus more, etc., etc., etc. And fear can be like a 7-foot monster, a green-eyed monster that's breathing fire down your throat. The book talks about overcoming that fear, whatever that fear is. We need to define what we are afraid of logically. We need to be logical about what is causing this fear. And once you realize that, what happens when you kind of think about the worst scenario, it's not so scary after all. We realize that there are not that many obstacles as we thought in the beginning. So we need to just sit down and try to understand what it is logically. Now, logically is the story of David and Goliath for me. And we know that this is a very popular biblical story because everybody was affected emotionally by Goliath. Just the look of him was enough to scare you. Nobody wanted to fight Goliath. We know that the story goes that anybody who slays Goliath would win the war. And there was one the least person actually to slay Goliath was a small boy, actually, and he looked at Goliath logically. He realized, and this is from a talk by a priest, he was very calm and collected, and he realized that Goliath was a huge, clumsy person, and that Goliath, he kind of realized so big, he was slow, and that was his disadvantage. And I think there's part of the story goes that Goliath also had a vision impairment, that he was not that sharp. His only advantage was being big and scary looking. And David did a very, very simple decision of, I think one rock in between his eyes would do the job. And you know the story. You know the story. The fear, the very fearful adversary was easy to slay. So don't be deterred by difficulties. So what if things will be hard? Focus on the reward. Focus on your why, not the difficulty. Our bruises and scars, they are the flavoring that makes victory very sweet for us. So if you get hurt, get up again and learn from that, because life is not going to be a walk in the park. You will fall, you will make mistakes, but make that an opportunity to learn. Let's look at some of the heroes. We know that this was a very courageous man, Martin Luther King. He was an American civil rights leader who fought against segregation. So the whites had to eat and shop and go, the public place in a certain area, and the blacks had to go in a designated area, and they never actually met each other, or they would never even share similar seats in a restaurant. And what happened is Martin Luther King actually sat in an area for whites during the time that there was segregation. And of course, this created so much havoc, and he was arrested. Actually, in the history of his life, I found out he was arrested 29 times. And so many people actually fought against him, against his movement for equal civil rights. And he was assassinated in 1969. So, why do we care about what others think? Martin Luther King was very brave, was he not? Very courageous to go against the thinking of many other people. But why do we care? We are afraid of them even when we wouldn't be around to hear it. We can't let fear rule. We fear standing apart from others' opinion. Even if it's just for a few minutes, it's scary for us. Think about it. Why would that happen? Let's talk about the opposite of fear, which is courage. Well, they say that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to act and get up and move despite the fear. Because courageous people are always also fearful, but they move, they act against that fear. Let's look at some ideas from the book regarding courage. Preparation makes you brave. One of the greatest fears next to dying, they say even greater than dying, would you guess? It is the fear of public speaking. And I am a public speaker. I do a lot of speaking, but it didn't start off that way. I had a lot of fear about what people was going to say, about whether I was going to make a good talk, whether I was going to make mistakes on stage. What would they think? What would I do if I forget what I'm supposed to say? And most people read or take down note or read from notes. But again, the most effective speeches are not read. They just come from the heart. So preparation makes you brave. And in the example of public speaking, when you prepare your talk, you take the time to understand the flow, not memorize, but prepare the logic of the talk, and you practice your talk and you time your talk and you stay calm. This preparation process will actually eliminate your fear. For me, the best example is preparing for a talk. So you might wonder, you don't have to be a hero to be courageous. You could just be a public speaker, overcoming your fear. Number two, just start somewhere. Just do something, because the fear paralyzes you. But do you realize, again, in the area of public speaking, when you have that fear, you have the butterflies in your stomach and you're so afraid to open your mouth, the minute you start, the minute you do something like you open your mouth and you start to say a few words, the fear begins to disappear. Again, there's a saying, a cliche, do what you fear and what you fear will disappear. And so that's how I overcame my fear of public speaking. I just keep on telling myself, I'll do it anyway, and just prepare. So prepare logically, prepare well, and everything goes on smoothly. And the more you overcome your fear, the more you become more courageous. It's like a muscle that you keep on exercising. It just becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, let's look at other heroes again. From overcoming the fear of public speaking, let's look at somebody who overcame the fear of Nazi invasion and colonization. We call that colonization. Nazi was the Nazi Germany took over France during World War II for about 5 years. And there was a hero that emerged from that. That's General Charles de Gaulle. Now, the book Courage is Calling has a long story about Charles de Gaulle. It's an easy read. I really didn't understand the history until I read that part of the book. Charles de Gaulle was a former French president who led France against Nazi Germany in World War II. And, at that time, Hitler was trying to invade all the European countries, and he was pretty successful. And a World War I hero of France, I forget the name, he just agreed. He just said, France, I am your hero of World War I, and I'm going to tell you something. You have to accept the Germans invading France. You have to accept that we will be living under German rule. We can't fight. There's nothing we can do but to accept. Okay. And this former war hero, who was also very revered by the French public, he actually set up like a puppet government together with the Germans. But at the same time this was happening, Charles de Gaulle was doing an underground movement, excuse me, a movement that would fight the Germans from the underground, a resistance movement that was very, very risky. So he was actually tried in the puppet government, and he was found guilty, and he was sentenced for execution or assassination. And he really evaded all of that. And he actually was very instrumental in the freedom of France. Wow, that is courage, to stand against power and might and death, the fear of death. Amazing. Another very strong person, again, is the American activist in the civil rights movement, again, in the time of Martin Luther King. Best known for her pivotal role in the Montgomery bus boycott. I think you remember the story. Again, there was segregation in the bus, and Rosa Parks, who is Black, she actually sat in the area for white people, and she would not budge. She would not leave her seat. She would not accept that Black and white people could not sit together. And she was awarded by the American government as the first lady of civil rights. We know that story. Amazing, inspiring. Let's look at courage. Understand it's good to be difficult. As I said, let's say when you're, again, let's look at the idea of working out another, you're facing this difficult thing. So your courage has a muscle, and the more you work it out, the stronger it becomes. But I think it's the same with being fearful or being afraid. The more fearful you are, your muscle in that area, I think my internet is that I stop. Okay. Yeah, I see. I'm just checking if there's any issue with the internet. It's good to be typographical error. So it's good to feel the pain of overcoming fear. That's part of being courageous. And as I said, every time you give in to fear, the more fearful you become. It's like a muscle also. So instead of making your courage muscle stronger, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. Here's another idea. Make it a habit to always, when you're in a situation, big or small, to out and feel what you said. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Courage is contagious. If we fight hard and long enough, we will find that everybody is with us. So this is an element that's necessary for creating movements where more and more people join your cause. Fortune favors the bold. The book talks about another character. Okay, another rather long story about this guy. I wonder if you know him. Frank Serpico became a movie many years ago with Al Pacino starring as Frank Serpico. But this is a true story. It's not a fiction story. Frank Serpico was an idealistic New York City cop who refused to take bribes, unlike the rest of the police force. Wow, that is another form of courage. His actions got Frank shunned by the other officers, okay? So you can understand that because he was against all the corruption that was happening, everybody wanted to put him down. But his courage made him just step up from the crowd and speak the truth. And he later went public with all these allegations, making him a real hero in the New York police force at that time when it was infested with corruption. And of course, this sparked this very famous movie, Serpico, if some of you remember, but that was it was many years ago. The heroic, to be courageous. So it's not just being courageous, You can even go up another notch higher. And to be courageous is to follow your call. To be heroic is to go beyond it. Heroes are not always rewarded or praised for their efforts, but sometimes and often they are instead ignored, blamed, or even executed. Wow, mahirap pala maging hero, huh? Now, let's look at this idea. You must go through the wilderness. When you have to fight your fear and let your courage win, and you want to be a hero, not necessarily to the whole world, not necessarily to the Philippines, maybe just to be a hero to your family. You go through the wilderness, you go through uncertainty. Selfless love. Heroes have this selfless love. When did we see this? During the pandemic. Our MDs, our nurses, despite the risk of catching COVID at the height of the pandemic, despite the risk of not just catching COVID, but bringing COVID home to their loved ones, to their spouses and their children or their parents with comorbidities, they stayed on with selfless love. Kudos to these heroes who actually had to take care of those sick in the hospital, risking their own lives. That is a very clear example of selfless love. And you see that in the heroic courage. It's not about them, it's about other people. Okay. So, heroic courage, no time for hesitation. You make decisions right away. You don't really, because, delay could cost your failure. One of the most revered heroes of the Philippines, and this is not in the book because, of course, the author is not Filipino, but you might say, don't we have Filipino heroes? Oh, we have a lot. But the first one really is Lapu-Lapu. Lapu-Lapu is widely celebrated as the first Filipino hero, famously vanquishing Portuguese conquistador Ferdinand Magellan in their attempt to colonize Mactan, Cebu. Wow. All you have is a sword, and your enemies have uniforms, have protection, they have guns, they have a big ship. They seem a lot more advanced than you, and yet, wow, can you imagine that situation? They fight and they succeed. Next idea is make your own luck. Don't just wait for things to happen. Make it happen. Another thought from the book is inspire through fearlessness, just like Lapu-Lapu. Winston Churchill, another example. Here are some of the famous quotes of Winston Churchill. While Charles de Gaulle was in France, Winston Churchill was fighting for the freedom and the safety of England, of the United Kingdom, against the Nazi German forces. And here are some of his famous quotes. This is all from Churchill. They have enemies. That means a quote from Winston Churchill. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. That's an interesting thought. Are you able to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm because of your cause, because of something you are fighting for? Well, you can reflect upon that. You must burn the white flag. What does a white flag represent? Giving up. Again, the famous words of Winston Churchill. And he said this: never give in, never give in, never, never, never in nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Again, what are you fighting for? Are you a hero? Are you going to make the changes you need to make so that whatever goals you've set for 2023 will become a reality? Or will it just be the same thing, back normal, same thing, comfort zone? Alexander Solzhenitsyn, sorry, that's a hard name to pronounce. Solzhenitsyn said a decline in courage had been considered the first symptom of the end. And here's another very important thought from Winston Churchill. To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if the moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. You might think of the war, but actually this can apply to any kind of situation in your life. There is an opportunity that is tapping you on the shoulder. Are you ready? Or unqualified, unprepared for that which could have been your finest hour? Let's move on. Let's kind of summarize some of these ideas. Again, first, we are called to rise above our fear and cowardice. We're all cowards, you know. The biblical story of Peter seeing Jesus walking in water, on water, it just shocked him. He was filled with fear. He didn't know that that was Jesus. And when he found out Jesus was walking in water, he was inside the boat and Jesus was outside the boat. He was a coward, but he stepped out of the boat and he walked on water. That's a biblical story. Peter took a leap of faith, and what he saw was a miracle. When was the last time you took a leap of faith? When was the last time you took a risk? Second idea, summarizing. Second, we are called to bravery over the elements, over the odds, over our limitations. Mountain climbers, they're very courageous, are they not? They risk their lives. The story of people who go up Mount Everest. That's courage. In fact, there's the story of the mountain climber. And some of them actually, well, he was interviewed on television and he was asked, Mr. Mountain Climber, why, oh, why do you risk your life? Why do you risk your limb? Why do you do those things to climb a mountain? And the mountain climber answered the interviewer, well, Mr. Interviewer, it's obvious to me that you have never seen the top. Summary idea number 3. Perhaps for only just magnificent moment. Why? Because we're not heroes are we? We're not whose names will go down in Philippine history, someone who changed the world. As some, we're not history books, we're just regular people. But we too can be heroes, big or small. I tried to look for a picture of this story to end, but I couldn't find it because of internet. You just can't get pictures from the internet. So I'll tell you the story anyway. You must have seen a, a really amazing story in TikTok or YouTube of a man. He actually wrestled a croc with his bare hands. Do that. Well, if you know about the video, the TikTok or YouTube story I'm talking about, you would realize, you know why he did it. He actually, the crocodile or the alligator actually grabbed his pet dog, and the dog was inside the mouth of the alligator. And the only way the little could be saved was for the pet owner, the loving fur parent, to attack the alligator with his bare hands. And the video shows him actually opening up the alligator, and he opens up the mouth of the alligator. He is, look for that. If you're not familiar with that TikTok or YouTube 3-minute video or 2-minute video, go look for it, Google it, and find. Oh, that's you, that's me. We can be heroes in so many ways, big or small. But whatever it is, it takes stepping out of your comfort zone. It's taking preparation. It's going to take preparation and planning. It's going to take just being resilient and getting up every time you fall, because 2023 beckons, and we want to be heroes. We want to make those changes in this new year. So that's my book summary for you this evening. Thank you. Back to Jovi, our MC.